Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Royal Nerd Gaming. I am your host, the Royal Nerd, and I'm back! Vacation over, I'm back in town, and this video is late. I'm sorry. I mean, listen, I got out 2 videos on schedule while I wasn't even in the country, which I think is pretty impressive, and then I got back, and then I immediately got very sick. So, yeah, I was not in good shape for a couple of days there. Still getting over a bit of a cold. My voice might give out at any moment, but hey, until it does, let's rank some cards. And we start off, of course, with this week's new card, Valentina. Another one of our secret agent characters, except she's a triple agent, which I think means that, like, maybe she was working with S.H.I.E.L.D., and then she betrayed them, like, haha, I actually work for this terrorist organization. But then she betrayed the terrorist organization and went back to working for S.H.I.E.L.D., like, I was on your side the whole time. So basically what I'm saying is she's very trustworthy, is the word I would use. But yeah, this is the sort of S.H.I.E.L.D. getup, although I don't see the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo anywhere, so that might give you some sort of idea that her loyalties aren't exactly well defined, but this is the sort of S.H.I.E.L.D. bodysuit that we saw like Maria Hill wearing, that sort of dark jumpsuit with silver white highlights, the bracers, and the belt. And she's actually gone the extra mile. She's continued that pattern into her hairdo, sort of dark hair with a silver streak. You can tell she's got style. I like it. The background's kind of generic, just sort of looks like any old base. Between a sort of basic background and a sort of basic pose, really. It does the job, but at the end of the day, it is a base card through and through. And as such, like many a base card, it's gonna get a B tier. And then of course, we have Victor Faro's Spotlight Cash variant for Valentina. I think this is the one I like the least out of all the Spotlight Cash variants this month. The background is definitely the least interesting out of all of them. It's just sort of this like toxic green smoke. It works, it gives a nice contrast, but it's not especially interesting. We've actually lost some of the contrast in her outfit. I mean, the belt isn't that sort of like silvery white color. You still got it on like her arm bracers, and there's a wrap around her leg, plus the highlight in her hair. I would have loved to see a little bit more contrast, because at the end of the day, it is just like a black jumpsuit. But the thing that really throws me off about this variant is, what is this pose? What is she doing? It's a weird snapshot to put a character in. It doesn't feel natural, it looks a little awkward. I don't get it. But I am going to try and replicate it, so let's do this. There it is. Is it good enough? Oh god, I hope it's good enough. Kind of have to lean back and I'm not looking at the screen, but we're just gonna do it. Ow. Anyway, I still love Victor Faro's sort of oil painting art style. The other elements of this variant don't really exceed the base card in any meaningful way for me, so I think I'm also gonna give this one a B tier. Unfortunately, it is the only variant for Valentina right now, so she's another one that I'm gonna have to wait and see what other variants get released for her in the upcoming months. But yeah, that's it. There's Valentina's variants. Yeah, it's a different day. I recorded Valentina's variants, well, her base card and all one of her variants, and ranked those on the tier list, and then I had a coughing fit. My voice gave out, and I sounded really lovely and hoarse and just gravelly and bleh. So, yeah, I stopped recording. And that means that this video is even later than I was already thinking it was going to be. I was going to put Valentina in a separate video, but now she's just gonna become part of this video, and this video is now gonna spin around and be about the new season. So we've caught up, we dealt with Valentina, it's done, Thunderbolts is over, so we're gonna talk about the new season card and its variants, we're gonna talk about the new release this week, and we'll probably even have time to cover one of the older cards in cost order. So strap in, we've still got some work to do. So starting off fresh with the new season pass card, Blink. And another character that I know nothing about, but if I had to guess, I would say she is a completely average, normal, human character with no special abilities whatsoever. No? Oh, except that she is neon pink and flying through a space portal. There is that. Honestly, this is actually a great base card because despite my complete and utter lack of knowledge about her character, there's lots of detail and I can glean a lot of information from this. I mean, her powers clearly have something to do with teleportation, at least I'd assume. I'm getting that from the name Blink and the fact that she can kind of switch cards in and out in game and, you know, the giant neon pink portal she's flying through. Add on to that she's got these kind of like pink dagger things in between her fingers, like energy blades that I'm assuming she can like throw like little needles, like yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know what her powers are specifically, but I'm getting a vibe, and that's really all I need out of a base card. She has impeccable dress sense. I mean, the cropped leather jacket, the fingerless gloves, the choker, and the belt to match. She's punk rock as hell, which is an impressive aesthetic to pull off when she's literally neon pink, wearing bright green clothing. I mean, you'd think those aesthetics would clash a little bit, but it totally works here. And it makes it so that the base card here is bright and vibrant while still giving us a really good idea of Blink's personality. This is an excellent base card, probably one of my favorites to come out in the last couple months, so I'm gonna give it a high A tier. Then we have this Blink variant here, and I gotta be honest, I feel like it's a bit of a step down from the base card. It's still got some cool elements going. The perspective here is very fun. Her kind of like reaching out to the camera as she flies forward. Another pink portal behind her, that seems to be pretty synonymous with her. I can't appreciate her outfit as much. The colors aren't as bright. The energy dagger things in her fingers look less cool here. They almost feel more like crystals, and I don't think that's what they're supposed to be. Overall, it just feels like a slightly dimmer card. I might like it more if the base card was more generic, but because the base card was so good, this one actually ends up feeling a little bit disappointing. So I'm gonna give this one a B tier. And then we have this variant, which switches up things quite a bit. And I gotta ask, what? What is happening here? What am I looking at? This feels like a drastic change in vibe and aesthetic and environment. I mean, she was in space a minute ago. I mean, the sky behind her looks gorgeous and starry, but I can't tell if she's like close to the ground. She's on a magic carpet now. What's that about? Does she have a magic carpet? That's cool. It appears to be an X-Men branded magic carpet, so I've got questions about that. And what, like, she's got this like hood over her head and these puffy sleeves that are very, very beautiful, especially the little gold embellishments, but most of the fabric is like sheer, like completely see-through. It feels like it defeats the purpose of clothes if it's invisible. It kind of looks cool here. I don't know what it's doing for you. Maybe it's keeping her warm, although it feels like a warm environment. Sun seems very bright and pretty. Everything's pretty. It's a very pretty variant. It's just thrown me for a bit of a loop. This variant is very pretty. I don't understand it, but I like it. So I'm gonna give it an A tier. Now, here we have Flaviano's Blink variant, and I love Flaviano variants. They're always so bright and colorful, almost this sort of neon aesthetic. I mean, it makes sense that we would have a Flaviano variant for Blink, a character who is neon pink, wearing bright, bright green. Look at how gorgeous these colors look in this style. Blink is a very peculiar and unique combination of colors, and so this feels like a celebration of those colors, making them as bright and vibrant as possible. It ensures that she's the center of attention, especially with her further illuminated by her bright pink portal behind her. It's the only source of light in what appears to be space, where she's teleporting out of this lifeless sentinel just floating off into the void. What a cool setting, and yet it doesn't take away from her at all. I love this variant. It feels like it perfectly captures Blink. This is definitely my favorite of the Blink variants, so it's gonna get an S tier. And finally, we have Alberto Del Lago's variant. He's the artist who's being showcased this month, so all his variants are gonna be in the Spotlight caches, and this is the variant you can get at the end of the Season Pass. And I love it. He's picked amazing colors as well for Blink. Not as neon as like a Flaviano variant, but this green is such a beautiful, almost pastel green, and it works really well with her bright pink skin, although it's not too bright here. It's a little bit more subdued. She still stands out amazingly in this rather busy background, which is gorgeous, by the way. The space behind her and the way that he's done the pink portal. Plus, we've now actually got her throwing her little pink energy crystal dagger knife things, whatever those are. It feels like a step up from the base card in every way, and that's a great feeling to have for the variant that you're being rewarded with at the end of the Season Pass. In fact, it's actually like very similar to the base card. Now that I'm looking at it, hang on a second, it's kind of giving me, wait. May I introduce you to Daniel and the Cooler Daniel? I mean, that's really the energy that these two are giving me. And I don't mean that as like a bash on the base card. They're just using so many visually similar elements. And I mean, yeah, it's the same character, there's gonna be overlap, but they're both flying through a pink portal in the same sort of space setting. They're both actively using the pink energy spike things. Their poses are almost the same, the way they're flying, just at slightly different angles. They feel especially similar. So because of all that, I am gonna give this one an S tier, because it really is just an evolution of the base card in all the best ways. And that's it for Blink. 4 whole variants, look at that. I'm used to the new cards only having like 1 or 2 variants nowadays, so it's nice to see that there are some new cards coming out that still have some variety to it. But speaking of new cards coming out that only have 1 variant to their name, let's talk about Nocturne. Now, Nocturne is the new card available in the Spotlight caches this week, and she is the daughter of Nightcrawler and Scarlet Witch. I haven't talked about Nightcrawler or Scarlet Witch's variants yet on the channel, so if you have no idea who those characters are, which feels unlikely if you're watching this, but if it's the case, Nightcrawler's blue, and Scarlet Witch has pink magic, and you'll notice that Nocturne is blue. She got pink magic, so their child, of course. I do think it's fun that she is literally a combination of them in every way, from design to her ability in-game, like she can move like Nightcrawler but change the location like Scarlet Witch. Even her energy cost and power are combinations of their energy costs and power. That's fun. I definitely like the way she's been implemented into the game. But in terms of the base card here, I don't know, it just feels kind of plain, especially after we just saw Blinks. You know, another character with crazy colored skin, who also has teleportation abilities and pink magic hands. Actually, they feel very similar. I wonder if that was on purpose. In terms of Nocturne here, the blue they've used for her, it just feels kind of flat. It's not exactly eye-catching. They've opted for this sort of washed-out yellow color, which is just very boring to look at, and makes the background kind of nothing. I can't tell what's happening back there at all. There's no depth to it. The best part of it is the pink around her hands. That's nice and bright. I like the energy kind of arcing from her fingertips. That works for me, but it just feels like too little. I would like more from this. I mean, her outfit is so dull. It's just brown and copper, and none of it feels like it flows together really nicely here. I feel like I'm being especially harsh on this base card, but that's only because we just saw such an awesome base card from Blink. Nocturne's does what I need it to do. You know, it shows me that she's blue like Nightcrawler and pink like Scarlet Witch. It is the bare minimum that I need from a base card, so it is going to get a B tier. And then you have the Spotlight variant for Nocturne, of course done by Alberto Del Lago. Still hope I'm saying that correctly. And this is the only variant for her right now, and it is an improvement from the base card in pretty much every way. I really like that it's set at night. Or maybe not quite night, but like dusk, you know? That sort of hazy blue color of the sky. It's gorgeous, and lets her stand out really nicely, even though she is also blue. Probably better than it would look on a full night sky, where she might blend into the dark blues and blacks. It's still more shadowed than the base card. Feels a lot more fitting for her overall aesthetic. Then you've got her piercing yellow eyes. I mean, that gaze, she is staring into your soul. I barely noticed the yellow eyes in the base card because it's basically the same color as the background. They don't stand out. But here, with nothing else even remotely yellow or that bright around her, you're drawn into her eyeline, and she is still the center of attention, even with her bright magic hands spewing electricity all over the place. I don't love that I phrased it like that, but that's what I'm sticking with. I will say, this does kind of feel like another case of the Cooler Daniel syndrome. That's what I'm gonna call it. Hang on, let me get it. You see what I mean? It almost feels like they're functioning from the same sort of reference for how these characters should be posed and what they should be doing, and then Alberto Del Lago takes it one step further and adds a whole bunch of little details that make his variant super cool, but it does feel very visually similar to the base card. So just like with Blink, I think I'm gonna give Alberto's Nocturne variant an S tier. I just really like his art, you know? It's simple, but really effective. Anyway, that's like so many new cards we just went through, so let's go back to cost order for a little bit and talk about Echo. Now, Echo's base card here kinda does the same thing that Nocturne's did, where the background is just sort of a hazy yellow, you know? It feels a bit more smoky here, kinda like a fiery effect. It's a bit cooler, I don't mind it as much, but in general, I don't love when the base cards just don't do a lot with the background. It feels very underwhelming. I know that the focus is obviously on the character and giving us a good look at them. As for Echo herself, She looks pretty cool here. I like this pose she's in. It feels like casual, yet ready for a fight with the gun up, letting people know that she's a threat. I would say that I think the most iconic part of Echo is absolutely that handprint over the eye, and we can't even really see it here. It's very faded on her face, and on the side of her face that's turned away from us. I almost wish that the whole thing was flipped and we were seeing the side of her face with that cool effect, because it would be very easy to miss here. Overall, it's a fine base card, so it's gonna get a B tier. And yep, that's the point where I'm blocking tier list now, so... Wait, no, that's the wrong button. I've disappeared. Where'd I go? Ah, I'm down here, don't worry. I'm back, guys. Whew, that was scary for a minute. I was lost in the darkness. Anyways. Oh, now I really like Peach Momoko's Echo here. It feels like the watercolor aesthetic is very fitting for her, and the handprint is a lot more of a focal point here. I really like that. Every other color on her is a little bit more faded, like even the other parts of her outfit that are white, that sort of wraps around her arm, feel more gray, whereas the handprint is just bright. In fact, everything about her kind of leads you up to her face and her eyes. Her pose kind of leaning back quite a bit, which is kind of funny, but the perspective of it all just leads you up to her eyes, which I really like. The background is still a little bit plain here, just this sort of like pinkish salmon color. With the base cards, it can sometimes feel like the character was just kind of plopped down into that environment, almost like the character and the background were designed separately. I don't know if that's the case, but that's just sometimes how the base cards make me feel. Whereas here, this is all very clearly Peach Momoko's art style throughout, and it is gorgeous. I definitely like this one more than the base card, but it's not my favorite Echo variant, so I'm gonna give it an A tier. Now, normally, I'm very critical of when a character is blending into the background of a card, but in this case, it is awesome. And very clearly intentional. That's usually part of the problem, that it feels like an oversight, whereas here, it is part of the design. Echo looks like she's emerging from the shadows with these fiery birds flying all around her. Then you see like her arms and her face and that bright white handprint, and that's what draws your eyes. And then you start to notice all of the rest of her details. This variant is striking and beautiful. It just draws you in and also intimidates you a little bit. Like, she fired that gun recently. It is smoking and she is approaching me. I am a little scared that she's coming after me next, but in general, a very cool aesthetic and hard to pull off because of how much everything kind of blends into each other. Maria Wolf here absolutely nailed it. This variant is just so unique. You don't get a lot of variants like this, so it's definitely gonna get an S tier. Now, here we have Echo's Phoenix Force variant, and I don't know, I don't think we've looked at any of the other Phoenix Force variants yet. There's quite a few of them, but in the comics it's usually Jean Grey who has the Phoenix Force, is wielding, using, cursed by, possessed by? Is it possession? Is the Phoenix Force possessing people? Is that what it does? It doesn't really seem like they have a choice, usually. It seems like it's kind of out of their control. There's a big fiery bird spirit that flies in you and makes you stronger, okay? That's how it works. That's how I understand it. It's a big fiery phoenix thing that goes whoop right in you, use you like a puppet, go ka-ka, and you fly away. Anyway, it's a cool variant. Looks good here. I like how they've combined the aspects of the Phoenix with Echo's design. Like, the handprint is all orange and fiery now. That's cool as hell. And she's got the Phoenix wings behind her. Is that just like the Phoenix is behind her, or does she actually have wings? Does the Phoenix Force give you wings, or does it just light you on fire? Man, I'm really unclear how all of this works, but the fire looks pretty. But yeah, in terms of how the Phoenix Force actually works, I have no idea. Anyway, it's pretty and bright. It stands out really nicely, so I'm gonna give it an A tier. And here we have Dan Hipp's Echo, and it actually kind of reminds me of his America Chavez variant. The pose confuses me. It feels like her legs and her waist are pointed one way, and then her body and her torso up is facing another direction entirely. Plus, she's like swinging one of her batons for an attack up front. I think that's why her arm is like up here. But the other arm is also up here, like prepping that baton for an attack. She's got both arms up here, which just feels quite awkward. Like she's gonna start clucking like a chicken or something. And then there's the fact that I don't know if Dan Hipp's design would be my first choice for how to see Echo portrayed. He simplified her design very nicely, like that's Echo, you can tell just by looking at her, but it doesn't feel especially different than the other Echo variants. I go to Dan Hip for a variant that stands out, and that's usually because the colors are bright and vibrant. Echo has a very monochrome design, and Dan Hip has captured that here, but as a result, it does just kind of feel like any of the other Echo variants. It's obviously not my favorite Dan Hip, but it's still a solid variant, so I'm gonna give it a B tier. Now, this is Echo's Chibi variant, but it seems to be depicting her with the Phoenix Force again. I thought it was more of like a one-off thing, or one of those what-ifs, like, what if Captain America was Venom, and also Ghost Rider? Or what if Spider-Man had a story where he wasn't suffering on every page and things just kind of went his way and he didn't have an incredibly depressing life? You know, crazy ideas like that. Maybe Echo and the Phoenix Force are more related than I realized. It's nice to see another Phoenix Force variant for her. I really like how the aesthetic mixes with her. Overall, the whole thing just feels fiery, with the big Phoenix emblem in the background and all these, I assume, little baby phoenixes flying around. I mean, it's a chibi variant, done by Rian Gonzalez. It's gonna be adorable and use fun, bright colors, and obviously Echo looks really cute too here. Like, she's having a good time. I don't know. Do you have to die to activate the Phoenix Force? Like, rising from the ashes like a phoenix? That's probably not enjoyable. But maybe it's nice after you die and come back. I'm really unclear on the whole process, but hey, it's a nice variant. So I'm gonna put it with the other Phoenix Force variant in A tier. And finally, we have David Mack's Echo variant. And this one is just gorgeous. I mean, I love the variants that are a little bit more realistic looking. This one actually combines the sort of like realistic details with a more sketchy aesthetic. Like, just look at her hair. It's very intricate and curly up front, and then as it flows backwards, it kind of fades into this sketchy watercolor smear look that just flows off of the page. The background is this watercolor splatter. It's really just a mess of your pastel-y peaches and pinks and purples. Messy, but intentionally so. Even the handprint on her face is less defined, not quite a fully drawn out hand, and rather just white lines running over her eyes. Still very eye-catching, still very striking, but like I said, less defined. This variant isn't just one thing. It's got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and yet it still all works together very beautifully. I really can't decide between this one and Maria Wolf's variant for my favorite Echo variant, but it's definitely an S tier. And there we go! We really did it all. Finished off with last season, we wipe our hands of the Thunderbolts, and we're starting off the new season strong with Blink and Nocturne. Although, now I'm looking at it, I believe these graphics are outdated, actually, and Blink is supposed to be a 5.7 now. I must have pulled these images before the official announcement dropped. That's my bad. That's been bothering you all video. That's on me. I'm sorry. Just spreading misinformation everywhere I go. But yeah, don't comment. If I see one comment that's like, "Oh, Blink's supposed to be a 5.7," then I failed. The whole series is ruined. No, it's fine. Please join me next week when we'll be filling out this tier list, starting with Sage, I think is the next new release, as well as a few other cards in cost order. So if you don't want to miss out on that, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and then you won't miss out on it, because you'll be subscribed, and you'll get a notification. I think you gotta hit a bell as well, maybe. At least subscribe if you wanna, you can come back whenever you want, check, say, hey, there's a new video out. Yeah, they're talking about Sage. And you can watch that, whenever you got time. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and farewell for now. Have a nice day, everyone.